Welcome to Design Stand-Up, Episode 26, a comprehensive guide to UX research, Part 1, by Christopher Murphy of Smashing Magazine. And I'm Ryan Stone, your host and fellow UX designer. Welcome to the show, if it's your first time listening. Today, Christopher Murphy describes the various research methods that can help designers to both design new products and redesign existing ones. So without further ado, let's stand up. A Comprehensive Guide to UX Research, Part 1, by Christopher Murphy of Smashing Magazine. Your job title might not be Design Researcher, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't at the very least inform yourself of your users and their needs by undertaking at least some initial scoping research before you embark upon a project. User research should be a core part of every designer's activity, and, reflecting this fact, we've seen a growing focus on the importance of user research over time as our discipline has matured. It's critical to the success of any project, be it for an external client, for an internal project, or a new product you're building, to adopt a user-first approach that positions the people that use what we build front and center. In this article, I'll introduce a cross-section of research methods that will help designers to both design new products and, as will often be the case, redesign existing products. Whether you're designing for external clients, working as part of an in-house team, or building a digital product, user research is critical. As you build your UX toolbox, it's essential to equip yourself with the research tools you need to design great user experiences effectively. I'll provide these in a section that explores the research landscape and dives deeper into the details. Research is a vast topic, so consider this article a short primer, but I'll provide some tips and techniques on both qualitative and quantitative research, as well as defining what these methods are. User-centered design requires user research. As this section's title summarizes, user-centered design requires user research. It's impossible to design effective and memorable user experiences if you haven't placed your users right at the heart of your design process. When embarking upon the design process, indeed, as you're framing the problem you're trying to solve, it's important to ask, 1. What do your users want to get done? 2. What are their goals? And 3. What are they trying to achieve? Your user research should give you some insight into the answers to these questions. It should also be one of the first things you focus on. In short, it's critical to undertake user research right at the beginning of the project. This helps to define the scope of the project, what exactly it is you are doing, and the goal, what the intention is. Start with the goal, clearly defined, and work back from that. Great products enable customers to get jobs done. Your role as a designer is to define those jobs, then design for them. Spend some time with your users, getting to know their needs, and what it is they are trying to achieve. These are their jobs to be done. If the phrase, jobs to be done, is new to you, it's well worth becoming better acquainted with it. I'd highly recommend bookmarking Alan Clement's excellent Jobs to be Done website, which dives a little deeper on the subject. The team at Intercom, an excellent product, have also written a book on the topic, Intercom on Jobs to be Done. It's critical to focus on users first, or you're in danger of designing based on your assumptions, which often aren't necessarily correct. Instead of beginning with assumptions, begin with user research. Define the problem you're trying to solve, build a prototype, test your assumptions, and iterate. Research should be an ongoing process. It's rarely, if ever, finished. It's returned to repeatedly throughout the process. Ideally, you should adopt an iterative approach towards your design. Research, design, prototype, build, and test. It's important to stress that this process is a loop that we run through repeatedly. By undertaking user research, we can frame a problem, design, prototype, build it, and finally, return to our users to test our assumptions. Looping iteratively through this process leads to better results as user feedback shapes user experience. With something built, even at a functional prototype stage, using a tool like Adobe XD, it's important to test it. The best approach is a lean approach. Move quickly and design effectively by creating a minimum viable product, or MVP, testing it, and iterating. You can learn a lot through observation, watching how your users interact with your prototypes. As Yogi Berra puts it, in characteristic style, you can observe a lot by just watching. It's critical not to get lost designing in a vacuum, isolated from users. As such, it's important to get out of the studio and meet users. Design without users in mind isn't design. It can also lead to mistakes that are expensive to fix later. It's a mistake to think, we can't afford user research. This last point, you cannot afford to undertake user research, is critical. It's better to undertake some research than no research. The research landscape. There are a wealth of tools we can use as designers to inform our research, and as your experience of user research widens, you'll develop the experience to know when to use which tool. As we'll see shortly, when we explore analyzing research data, it's important to use a mix of research methods to ensure your findings are grounded and informed from a variety of perspectives. There are many tools, and unless you're a bona fide design researcher, it's impossible to be fluent in all of them. It is, however, important to start to build a research toolbox, adding methods as your knowledge expands. We can think of the research landscape as one with two axes, qualitative and quantitative, and behavioral and attitudinal. On one axis, we have qualitative approaches, exploring opinions, quantitative approaches, and testing opinions by exploring data. On the second axis, we have behavioral approaches, observing users, watching what they do, and attitudinal approaches, listening to users, exploring their attitudes and opinions. Before I introduce some qualitative and quantitative research methods, it's important to stress that who you test is important. Testing your designs on your studio mates won't cut the mustard. It's important to work with real-life humans outside of your building, preferably real-life humans that echo the users you are designing for. When undertaking qualitative research, where you are working more closely with research participants, it's important to put some thought into finding the right kind of people. If you're designing a project for the elderly, for example, it's essential to establish a panel of research participants that fit the profile of who you are designing for. It's critical to find the right kind of people, and building a screening document for candidates is one way of doing this. Essentially, a screening document lists the characteristics of the users you're designing for. For example, whether they're male or female, age 65 and older, computer literate, travel regularly, and so on. The bottom line, it's important to select your research participants with care. They will shape your research findings considerably, so it's essential to put some work into this part of the process. Qualitative research. Qualitative research is primarily exploratory research, undertaken to establish users' underlying motivations and needs. It's useful to help you shape your thinking and to establish ideas, which can then be built and tested using quantitative methods. Broadly speaking, qualitative methods are largely unstructured, tend to be subjective, are at the softer end of science, and are about establishing insights and theories, which we then test, often using quantitative approaches. They tend to be smaller sample sizes and require a degree of hands-on facilitation. With qualitative research, user behaviors and attitudes are gathered directly. I'll be exploring 3 qualitative research methods in this article: interviews, contextual inquiries, and card sorting. User testing is also particularly important. However, I'll be exploring it in depth in a future article in this series. Until then, if you're eager to learn a little more, I'd suggest reading Nick Babbich's 10 Simple Tips to Improve User Testing. Qualitative research method number 1, interviews. Interviews are a great way to really get to the heart of your user's needs. To facilitate interviews effectively requires a degree of empathy, some social skills, and a sense of self-awareness. If you're not this person, find someone on your team who is. It's important to put your interviewees at ease. They need to feel comfortable sharing their thinking with you. If you can build a rapport with them, they'll often open more honestly with you. One of the biggest benefits of interviews over, for example, surveys, is that you learn not only from your interviewees' answers, but by their body language too. Broadly speaking, interviews fall into one of 2 categories. 1, structured interviews, where the interviewer focuses on a series of structured questions comparing the responses of the interviewee to other interviewees' responses. And 2, semi-structured interviews, where the interviewer adopts a looser, more discussion-driven approach, letting the interview evolve a little more naturally. In reality, anyone who has conducted interviews will know that that is, by nature, organic. Even if you have a predetermined structure in place, it's important to allow some breathing room to allow the interview to evolve. Put some thought into your research questions in advance, but allow the interviewee the latitude to move into areas that you may not have considered up front. Interviews are a useful way to challenge your assumptions, and interviewees can often lead you to unexpected discoveries and things that you perhaps weren't aware of. It's important to put the interviewee at ease, ensuring they feel comfortable answering your questions. Facilitating an interview effectively isn't easy, so it's helpful to put another member of the team as a note-taker. This allows you to focus 100% on your interviewee. Qualitative research method number 2, contextual inquiry. Hear that in part 2. You just listened to the post titled, A Comprehensive Guide to UX Research, Part 1, by Christopher Murphy of Smashing Magazine. If you want to learn more about Christopher and read some of his other amazing design articles, just press the link in the show notes below, or head over to Smashing Magazine at smashingmagazine.com. Oh, and hey, do you like free stickers? I know you do, because come on, who doesn't love a good sticker? Well, I just got an order of 50 fresh new stickers from Sticker Mule. And I'll tell you what, if you head over to iTunes or Google Podcasts right now and leave a short rating or review, I will send you some awesome Design Stand-Up sticker swag on the house. Well, that's all I have for you today, guys. It's been a pleasure. Until next time, fill up those coffees, turn up those tunes, and let's design a better world.